The Clinton email scandal and cover-up is relevant because without that, you wouldn't have had the Russiagate hoax. Look, the Obama gang was desperate to protect Hillary Clinton's candidacy. What better way to do that than to cover up the Clinton email issue and freeze the Trump administration from doing anything about it once they won by making fake allegations against President Trump in Russia. All with the help, of course, of the Clinton campaign. No Hillary Clinton campaign, no shady dossier, no spy warrants, no collusion hoax, no Mueller investigation. And you would have had a Justice Department, as I said, that was unfrozen and might have been able to do something in the first 2 years in terms of a serious relook of the Clinton issue. And of course, they didn't do that because it was all Mueller all the time at the Justice Department. As I said, he was king of the Justice Department. And of course, he was part of the Get Trump crowd, the coup cabal, as I like to call it. And sure enough, they're dissatisfied with the fact they were unable to find any collusion between any Americans knowingly and the Russians in any involvement in American public policy discourse, certainly in the campaign. And they couldn't make the obstruction case because there was no obstruction case to make. And then Mueller infamously doubled down and just lifted the veil because we were supposed to believe that Robert Mueller was the paragon of virtue. And he held a press conference essentially encouraging Congress to impeach President Trump. Outrageous abuse of power and authority, final act as a special counsel. So, of course, now the Democrats want him to come and say that again in testimony. And I know the Trump administration has been of two minds, hot and cold, about whether he should testify. And I don't blame him on that because his testimony is geared at abusing and attacking President Trump in an inappropriate way. But he has a lot of questions to answer. And if I were the Republicans or, maybe even an honest Democrat, they are there, I'd be asking Mueller a lot of questions. Why, given your interest in the FBI job and the fact that you had interviewed for it, would you then think it ethical and appropriate and without a conflict of interest to then run a special counsel investigation investigating how that job came about? Why did you keep on why did you still continue to be special counsel once you found out that James Comey broke the law to get you appointed by leaking information from President Trump's FBI files to the New York Times through a professor friend cutout? Why did you hide from the American people for 4 months Peter Strzok and Lisa Page's outrageous conduct and anti-Trump and anti-Clinton bias? They fired them, removed them from the position when they were running the Trump investigation for Mueller. And he didn't tell the American people about it for 4 months. Why did he cover it up? What happened to those text messages that your office deleted of Page and Strzok? Tell us about your contacts with the media. Did you leak to CNN the raid on Roger Stone's office? What were you thinking when you had a guns-drawn raid on the home of Paul Manafort? Same with Roger Stone. Tell us about your use of the shady FISA warrants. Did you work with Christopher Steele? Did you work with Fusion GPS? Did you use the conflicted and compromised James Comey? Why did you withhold material information from the Mueller report that would have made President Trump look good? Or certainly explain some of his conduct that you were trying to mischaracterize? For instance, you suggested Carter Page was a spy for the Russians, but you left out at the fact that Carter Page had actually helped the FBI prosecute Russians and was an informant for the FBI. Why did you not deal with the dossier, other than calling it unverified? Why did you not investigate Hillary Clinton's contacts with Russia intelligence while you're investigating Russia interference in our 2016 elections? Those are just questions off the top of my head. And I'm sure you, fair listener, can come up with a few others on your own, based on your knowledge. So Mr. Mueller's supposed to testify on July 17th. I hope he's asked a lot of questions. And I tell you, if speaking of Attorney General Barr, we talk about investigating the investigators. He's talked about having them investigate how the Mueller investigation come about, basically the 2016 FISA warrants and things like that, and whether there was a predicate for spying on President Trump. And to say that is to show that there was no predicate. There's no possible reason to spy on a presidential campaign. There simply isn't. I mean, I guess you can concoct some science fiction-like fantasy that would allow that to take place, but not in this system, could you? But if Barr's to do a thorough investigation, he's got to investigate the Mueller team. Andrew Weissmann, a conflicted as well, anti-Trump activist. Judicial Watch proved it. Involved in collaborating with the Associated Press to get Manafort before he was hired to work at the Mueller team. Mueller's #1 deputy, Andrew Weissmann, went to Hillary Clinton's election night party in New York. Mueller should be asked about that. He should be asked, why couldn't you find anyone who gave money to a Republican to put on your team? Why did you just hire Democratic hack activists to work on your prosecution team? Could be an interesting hearing. But we know what the media is going to do. They're going to blow up everything that Mueller says to try to push the destroyed Trump narrative that they're involved in. I don't know what Barr's doing, but I can tell you what Judicial Watch is doing. As we're doing with the Clintons, we're doing with Mueller and the deep state. We have over 50 lawsuits, at least a dozen of which relate to Mr. Mueller, trying to find out about these very questions that I've asked. We've already gotten information that Andrew Weissmann, for instance, was behind a lot of the hires of these anti-Trump donors on Mueller's team. We got that email again about Andrew Weissmann already, showing that he was an anti-Trump activist, praising Sally Yates, the Obama holdover who was trying to thwart President Trump's first travel ban, lawlessly trying to thwart it. The email shows that Andrew Weissmann said, I'm in awe of you. What the heck is he doing there? He should have been nowhere near that investigation. A lot of questions for Robert Mueller. I hope the Republicans have their act together, and I hope Democrats at least have the ethics to ask some tough questions. But of course, they're not going to want to do that because their party's implicated in the scandal. Democratic National Committee was behind the Steele dossier just as much as the Clinton campaign. I tell you what, one thing the president ought to do, he ought to demand information from Congress. Freedom of Information Act doesn't apply to Congress. He should push for that. The president has independent responsibilities to make recommendations to Congress on legislation. As part of that, he should be asking for documents from Congress about some of the things I'm asking about. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Did you know that the Freedom of Information Act doesn't apply to Congress? We're not allowed to ask Congress of anything. President Trump would do well, and frankly, everyone would do well to wonder why it is that Congress is exempt from the ordinary laws of disclosure that other government branches follow. Many state legislatures you can check to see your local state. I don't have a state-by-state analysis, but many state legislatures are subject to the Freedom of Information Act. Why isn't Congress? I've testified repeatedly to Congress before both Democrats, Republicans, well, obviously Democrats and Republicans if I'm testifying in a committee. But when Democrats ran Congress or the Senate and the House, it doesn't matter. I've testified on both sides, and I say the same thing. FOIA ought to apply to Congress. Now, Democrats and Republicans don't like that idea. Some do, some don't, but the leadership didn't really like that idea of either party. So maybe that's your little project for next week. Ask your members of Congress what they think about the Freedom of Information Act applying to Congress. See where they come down on it. They probably never thought about it. You'll probably horrify them with the question, so it might be enjoyable just to ask it.